What's up, fam? Elijah Chadley here, and welcome back to another episode of EXTOL WE. And this week, Michael, Aaron, Josh, my dad are my extras, and I am the ordinary. Doing an episode on the go today. Got to run out and do some photography, video stuff for a client of mine, Josh, and then come back home, edit like crazy, chart 8 more songs for Temple Hills Men Camp, and try to get some sleep in there somewhere. So I've been working with my friend Josh for about the last 4 or 5 years now, and I think we've done, I don't know, about as many projects together, 4 or 5 projects. Last week when I was making my video, I forgot to include it in my video that I did 3 listings went live 3.5 years ago as I was making my videos, and then this last week that God provided 3 more listings, and I was putting up 3 listings on the exact same week 3.5 years later. It's just crazy timing. I think the thing that I've loved most about my partnership with Josh is that Josh is an absolute amazing builder. Like, the guy's quality is just over the top, not just in construction itself, but just in his ability to work with clients, to listen to their needs, to be able to instruct them in a very stressful situation, and to provide them a clear way forward to help break into the dreams and the vision that they have for their life. The guy's just amazing at it. It's been so much fun being able to promote him over all of these years and getting to see how the dynamical relationship with his skills and mine work together. I don't want to see the guy do just as good in me in business. I want to see the guy do even better. That's how relationships in the kingdom operate. The righteous leadership prospers everyone under their authority, that they could be the same in the same position as them and greater. That's what Jesus did. He said, you will do everything that I have been doing and greater. And so out of that context, in the kingdom, we don't just seek to have people always be under us, looking up to us as the greatest, the best ever, and just serving servilely underneath us. No, in the kingdom, we honor those who are authorities over us by surpassing what they have done in accomplishments. The videos that went live this last week were walking in circles and expressions of immature greatness. It was so beautiful just seeing how my pastor with senior leadership at C3, the church family that I hang out with, had given me a prophetic word at the end of the Temple Hills men's retreat last year in June, and that he had told me just hang on to December 31st, and that on December 31st that God had a powerful expression of one of my prophetic videos from the past that went live. That God did a whole thing with that, and then on Wednesday, January 3rd, when I went to post that video, then Michael likewise got a word from the Lord that he was to release over our faith family as we went into a 21-day fast that was in regards to Joshua and walking around the walls of Jericho. As it turns out, all that stuff merged together in that then here on July 21st, this last year, walking in circles, my video was about walking around the walls of Jericho and seeing them come down, seeing God's people press through, break through strongholds, and to break through into everything that God had called them into. All of that then is just so incredibly mind-blowingly complex. I'll put links up above that you can listen to the videos where I recap all of that stuff. But then it was so beautiful that then was tied together then to the video that was posted 3.5 years ago in the past of immature expressions of greatness. Now, in that, I tell about how my little girl Kailani, just in her ferocity of speaking to this enemy, Freddy the Fox, that she said that I will hit him with my fork. I hit him with my bowl. I will stick my tongue out at him and he will die. And just celebrating how when I was a little boy that I had this expression of ferocity with my mom, saying how much I would protect my little sister and that I would snap them with rubber bands. But then here's Kailani with this expression of greatness that was even quieter still. That she said, I will stick my tongue out at them and die. And then getting to see that her expressions of greatness are being multiplied in greater measure and me still here in 2024 with the church in the earth. Had to get special FAA clearance to get some drone shots of Josh's place, and then, oh my goodness, just as I was finishing up, the thundering, lightning, oh my goodness, just started like dumping. Fortunately, was able to get all of my shots that I needed and get finished up, and then jump under this little covering here to finish out the video for the week. It's so beautiful seeing how God works together in partnership with his people. That obviously we're in partnership with Jesus, and then that Jesus partners his people together to help highlight what he's doing in the earth and in our lives. Back on January 27th of this year, 2024, had a dear friend Aaron who had a dream in the night in which he was swimming through a river. That he was a youth pastor, was at a youth conference and was with a bunch of children, and they were forging through a river, and that as he was going through the river, that he realized that there were sharks in the river. He bumped into one. As soon as he bumped into it, I was like, there's sharks in the water. He just boogied it to the other side, and that they were all being led through the river, though. They were wading through it. They were swimming through it, and that there was dangerous things in it, and that they were being led forward by evil, and that as they passed through this river and got to the other side, they found themselves in a concentration camp. I don't know if you heard about the blonde who was staring into the can intently because it said concentrate. That this camp was a concentration camp, but that once all the youth got there, and Aaron as well, that everyone was so afraid that they had just come through a traumatic experience, and then they were in this concentration camp. They were just surrounded by evil, and they didn't know what to do. And Aaron was hiding in a corner just because of the fear and the very present danger. When I came up to him, I was carrying Azriela in my arms, and she was cold and shivering. And when Aaron saw me carrying Azriela, that he knew that he had to do something. He stood up and went to a microphone and began to declare that the vengeance, that the restoration that Jesus was going to bring in this generation was going to be absolutely insane. Then he declared, go heal the sick, raise the dead. And it's so beautiful seeing how that resonates in my heart, that Jesus, when he took his place in the synagogue to read out of Isaiah 61 in the Luke passage, that he says, the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me to proclaim good news to the poor and to set captives free and open the blind eyes. And that he gets to the end of that passage and he cuts the thought short that ends out that passage and removes the day of vengeance of our God. And I think it's so beautiful to see how God is waging a war of vengeance against darkness, against all the powers of darkness, out of an expression of his kingdom ways coming into the earth in patience, kindness, tolerance, and gentleness, and the violence that God does to the world of darkness and to destroying the works of the devil is to heal the blinded eyes, to restore lives that have been lost, to raise people from the dead, to heal the sick, to open blinded eyes, that his vengeance is waged against the world of darkness and against those that fight against the kingdom through expressions of his heart in partnership with his people. Now, out of that was so awesome then that at the same time, during our fast time, that I had a dream in the night as well, and that at the end of our fasting time of 21 days of fasting, that we have this huge break fast celebration where we break our fast with breakfast, have this huge feast together as a faith family, and worship the Lord and press into then what God has for us in the remainder of the year. Now, in my dream, that I was sitting on stage with leadership, but I was sitting off to the side, off in the shadows, and that leadership were calling the people to press in and to declare and make declaration before the Lord and lift up a mighty shout, and that it was overflowing this expression of marching around the walls of Jericho and then lifting up a mighty shout. Now, I had my dream 2 weeks before the fasting started, and I didn't know what word pastor was going to get in regards to walking around the walls of Jericho and lifting up a mighty shout, but that as I was sitting on the stage and people were shouting, that all of a sudden in my spirit, I knew what the Lord was calling for, and he was calling for silence. I remember I went to the leadership who were on the stage, and that they were yelling and bent over the microphones, press in, and calling the people just to yell louder and louder and to break through. And that I walked up to the leader who was leading, took the microphone out the middle of their stomach, and they were like, whoa, what's Elijah doing? And I got on the microphone and I said, the Lord is calling us to be quiet. And that the people were so confused that the band calmed down, that people would be quiet for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and then somebody would yell and say, yes, Jesus. And that would reset it again. And that the people just calming down and calming in town until all of a sudden everyone was laying all over the auditorium, just laying on the ground with their hands on their chests, just breathing and just quiet. And that in the fullness of time, when everyone reached a harmony of quietness, the Holy Spirit descended in power and just absolutely wrecked the room. And I think the beautiful thing then that comes together is out of this overflow of what God has done in and through my life up to this point, and how he's leading and guiding me into community in a we disciple us context. That clear back in 1983, that my family moved to Craigville, Indiana in June of 1983. And I was been about 2.5 years old. That August, then I turned 3 years old. And that next year, when I would have been about 3.5, was when I had my experience with my dad in the garden, where I was laying with him and he had me plant seeds in the ground and asked me how these little bitty tiny seeds grow into huge carrots. That was my very first experience with experiencing the ordinary in life as extraordinary at 3.5 years old. And that now here 40 years later of walking through life with God, seeing his movement, seeing what he's doing, walking here, walking there. When he stands up and moves, I get in behind him, I follow him. That he's provided for me all throughout these years. And that now I'm in this place where I have stood in the waters that would keep people from breaking into the abundant life of Christ. That I've waited and waited and waited. That I've sat with the Lord. That I've allowed him to circumcise my heart. That my heart's desire is to seek you, reach out for you, open it. I'm coming for you to impart grace to you so that you can know the Father more, and that God is inviting us into an expression of the kingdom together as a covenant, a unified community of covenant intimacy in the abundant life of Christ, and that he's leading us in by a way that is not flooding, that it's not pervaded by sharks and things that would prey upon us, that God is opening up a clear way for us to walk through into the abundant life of Christ on dry land, and to take the fullness of the promised inheritance of the abundant life of Christ that has been granted to us as our inheritance, and to destroy this stronghold that says that we are to keep ourselves below God in a place of slavery. That God with his people in the Old Testament, as they came out of slavery in Egypt, that God was revealing himself as a God of power, that he was getting slavery, he was getting Egypt out of his people in a day-by-day dependence upon him for their daily substance, that give us today our daily bread, and they couldn't keep any leftovers because the next day it'd be all filled with maggots and be smelling bad. It would irk the heart of God if they were trying to keep manna to the next day, because they were slaves. They were hoarding resources because they had to take care of themselves because they were slaves. Nobody else would. That God was teaching them dependence upon him as a good father and showing himself to be powerful on their behalf. But from the very beginning, God's heart has been to be in partnership with a people, that God made all things. Through him, all things were made. Aside from him, nothing was made that has been made. And then God put man in the middle of the garden to tend what he had made, to see it made more fruitful, to see it multiplied. And that as man was fruitful and multiplied in the garden, and the garden got bigger and bigger, eventually, as man walked with God in the cool of the evening and just communed with him in partnership with God, eventually the entire garden would have covered the earth with the glory of God as the waters cover the sea. God doesn't have a plan B. It's always been plan A. And that now, here, in the restoration of all things through Jesus, that we've been restored to partnership with Jesus. That now in the New Testament, that God is revealing his heart in a restored expression of heaven in partnership with man. That Jesus is not interested in keeping us dependent and below him and being the powerful one, that he wants to see us do the things that he did on earth and greater. A stronghold that is in between God's people on the Jordan River and going in to confront all the giants beyond is that there's a belief that God is all powerful and that we are to stay surrendered under him, to not be great or glorious, and that God is just hovering over us with the next command for us to just say, aye, aye, Captain, like you're so great and we're below you. No, that's not what he's doing, that he's in partnership with us, that he's not leading us through into a concentration camp to have us concentrate on all of the words and the things that we're to do. He's not so interested as us doing the word as much as he is having us become the word. So family, where my little girl, Kailani, that she fumbled around, that she was trying to find the right words and like hype herself up. I'm gonna call down fire. I'm gonna break this stuff. God is calling me to confront this stronghold of a false belief in that we are to just stay under God's power as his servile servants. That's keeping us held back from pressing into the fullness of every good thing that God has called us to do. To follow the example of my little girl, rather than sticking my tongue out at this massive principality hiding in this stronghold, confronting his people. The proverb says that the king winnows out evil with his eye. Family, like my friend Aaron said in his dream, that God is releasing redemption, reconciliation, and restoration to all things in insane ways. That we would heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons, freely give because we have been freely given to. Family, if you've been holding yourself back, that you have been staying on the other side of the Jordan in a context of just wandering around through dry and arid places looking for a place of rest and not finding it, you're probably being deceived by someone else whose inheritance they're trying to convince you is yours. Our inheritance is in the abundant life of Christ, walking with him as he did and doing the greater works still. That God is releasing vengeance in the earth against all the works and the powers of darkness through gentleness, quietness, rest, and trust. So if you subscribe to what I am doing, then hit the button, hit it, and then get it. Hit the bell as well so you get notified with the new content. And if you loved this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. I pray blessings on all of our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I'll see you in the next video.